Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum. We are on channel 52 live, and today our guest is our own First Lady, Farhana Saya. And I am very thankful, Farhana, that you are making time with us today. She is, how can I introduce her? She's an amazing uh, energy behind our mayor who is doing phenomenal job, especially in this time of COVID. So, without any delay, I'm going to ask Farhana herself to introduce beside whatever stuff that she does. So, Farhana, welcome.
Thank you. And Amber, it's such a pleasure to be on the air with you here. I've known you for years now, and we always see each other at events, and we spend time with each other in different ways, and you've helped me in a number of ways. So I thank you. And it's great to just be here. I made sure I grabbed a nice warm cup of tea so that this is going to be a fun discussion and chat. I know some tough discussions as well as some fun discussions. So, a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in a community very similar to Patterson, from Flatbush, Brooklyn, actually, to two hardworking immigrant parents. So I particularly find any multicultural programs such as the work you guys do on Channel 52 to be near and dear to my heart. I always love, when communities realize that, hey, you know what, mainstream media is fine, but we also need to make sure that we have media that speaks to who we are and the issues and the concerns and the questions we have. So I'm honored to be here. So like I said, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, similar, very dense community. Right now the community I grew up in is struggling in similar ways to Patterson, because in very many ways it's very similar. My father had a grocery store at first in Crown Heights, then Flatbush. And, we lived upstairs above the grocery store, and that was life. I mean, he worked 7 days a week, many hours every single day to put food on the table. So I know that same entrepreneurial, that entrepreneurial spirit exists within, the Bangladeshi community in Patterson and beyond. And so, like I said, I'm honored to be here for that reason. And, I would say the American dream is what everybody wants, right? For themselves and for their children. And I love to see that come alive here in Patterson.
So, you must have learned how to help family and get involved in a very younger age because of your dad's having a store.
Yeah, naturally you get to know people, right? Naturally I forget what age, but I started working with him in the store, and I wanted to. I was very eager. There was a point where he said, "Oh, just be very careful. It's the girl should be home." He's just very traditional man, but I wanted to help him. I loved it. I learned a lot. You had to not just stock items and work the cashier, but speak to people. There's something about the community grocery store that nobody can match. None of these big box stores can match. So, so I have to say that it was a pleasure to do that and be able to get to know the community and understand their struggles. And everybody came in. I mean, people of all walks of life would come in, whether they be, just the neighborhood handyman to the neighborhood doctor to, the construction worker that happened to be working construction in the neighborhood to school children. So with their parents. So, we were exposed to everyone. And so I think that was definitely good exposure for me. And it taught me customer service, which I think is important in no matter what area you go into. Yeah. And it also gave me the hard work and determination I needed to excel in school and be able to get my own master's degree and be able to experience my dreams and my goals.
Awesome. So professionally, I know that you are you're a marketing executive, and you are you're in New Jersey. You're working where?
Yeah, so my marketing career has spanned a number of different companies. I've been in banking, I've been in cosmetics. So I've worked as a brand manager amongst a number of brands, anywhere from Estee Lauder, Clinique, L'Oreal, Kiehl's. So most of my experience has been in cosmetics, but I've also done healthcare, and I've also worked healthcare marketing, and I've also been in food marketing as well. So my marketing experience ranges from a number of Fortune 500 companies to smaller companies. Right now, I run marketing for a global translation company that does translations in the healthcare field. So with large pharmaceutical companies, life science companies, and health insurance companies as our clients.
Wow. So it's actually very diverse, and you are actually taking care. Were you coming from a background where our four major areas are coming into one? So that's unique by itself. A translation by itself, it's a huge, because the whole world is becoming virtual, and having a medical background behind it, the things that most of the time people do miss in marketing, that they are not well versed from the marketing value, and especially being a woman, having that cosmetic background, that actually helps, that brings such a big marketing, and more, that's why you're so pretty and presentable all the
Oh,
time.
well, thank you. I warn people, I never trained to be a makeup artist. I was always on the business side. So whenever people hear about my background in cosmetics, they're like, oh, great. Can you help me do my makeup? I'm like, that is one area I have to say I did not learn as much. I know the business really well, but don't ask me to contour or, do a smoky eye.
And the fourth thing is that you said that you started with banking, and actually, which is, I think, one of the most biggest strength, because if you have the background from banking, the numbers. I started with banking as well, and in Deutsche Bank, but life changes and bring you to different places where you needed more, I guess. So
Yeah.
let's start with your life and your life partner. And we all know that you are the first lady, and you guys make a beautiful couple. And this is the question that before, when I said to my friends and I shared that you are going to be coming, right away I started getting personal questions.
That's fine. That's fine. And I that's why I said I'm getting my cup of tea and let's just enjoy a good conversation. So, but yeah, if it's too personal, I'll let you know. But I'm an open book.
Okay. So the question is, I know that you're from a different faith. You're a Muslim, and Andre, our mayor, he is not from the same religion. So how did the family took it, or was there any difficulties, or how did that go?
Yeah, sure. So it was not accepted on both sides. When we first started dating, it was what is this about? What is this for? Whether it be his mom, you have to realize both of our parents were immigrants to this country. So they come from a culture that was a little bit more rigid, right? This whole idea of this openness and melting pot of America is not something that they're used to. So my husband's mother is from Syria, the Syrian Christian community, which is a very close-knit community, right? So the idea that she came to America and her son was, seeing a Muslim woman was something that shocked her. And the same for my side of the family. My parents thought, we've made sure they put me in religious school since I was a little girl. I learned how to read and write in Arabic. I embraced in many ways. I was a leader in my local Muslim student association in college. So for me to then say, hey, I'm interested in somebody who's outside my faith it took them aback. But I think what we've learned is the mutual respect is very important. Mm-hmm. And what I love is my kids' ability to sort of embrace both. Right. In many ways, my kids, my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old know how to pray, the Muslim way. They know the Al-Fatiha, they know Al-Ikhlas, they know Surat al-Nur, like they know their stuff, and they simultaneously really respect a lot of the stories of the Bible that, sometimes my husband likes to talk about. And there's so many lessons learned from that. And then the beauty of just having so many celebrations, right? So overall, it's been a positive experience for us, and it's what you make of it, is what I like to tell people.
Yes, and if you think about it, in our religion, it's one of the pillars that Christianity is also one of the belief that because Jesus Christ was our prophet, so we have to believe in it. And they are biblical religions, so there's so much similarity.
Very much.
Yeah, and
it's a different tone, is what I like to say. I said it's a very, very different tone. Like I have conversations with my kids all the time about this, and sometimes they can grasp it, sometimes they can't. But in the Quran has this message of like, I've sent messages down to humanity, and we haven't always been abiding by them, and the Quran just feels like this is your last chance, right? And so it's a more stern tone. So I like to analyze that with my kids and say, look, it's all similar. We all believe in this being that created us, and that that we should be serving in many ways, and we pray to, and we take it from there. And it's about being good people.
Okay. So another question was that you already said that, somebody is saying,
hello, Kabir. Ramadan Kareem to you too, and to your family. I hope you had a good iftar this evening.
Oh, we were rushing today. So this is from Saudi Arabia. Okay. So comments coming related.
Yes, I'm proud of her too. Keep the comments coming.
So how do you take the difference in religion in your house? Do you celebrate Eid, and do you celebrate Christmas, or it's one celebration over the other?
No, we celebrate everything. I joke around with my husband. I said we should actually celebrate the Jewish traditions too, like Hanukkah and Passover at this point, mainly because we literally celebrate everything. When you think about the cultural celebrations, we're always there. Whether it's Three Kings Day for the Latino community, to Mother Language Day that the Bangladeshi community takes very seriously, to we celebrate everything. My kids are exposed to everything. So naturally, having that in the home, whether it's the Easter egg hunt that we have, to, praying during, especially during Ramadan, they experience everything. And I think it's, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And the other thing is that
we don't prioritize one over the other.
Awesome. And the other thing is that, Paterson is considered a melting pot. So our kids will be exposed to different ethnicities. And I think that is the beauty of this city. And that's what I love about Paterson itself. So let's talk about, your initiatives. That I know that you have so many different initiatives, which is so dear to my heart as well, especially because, I'm an educator and I'm part of, early childhood education. So what you're doing is actually really touches my heart. So I would want you to explain and the beauty of it, that you as a mom staying at home, it's coming from a parent point of view.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. So when my husband first became mayor of the city of Paterson, I realized that one, we had to sort of wrap our hands around it, right? So he won May 8th, May 9th, we're like, wow, now the tough part comes in, right? Like the campaigning and whatnot was great. But at that point we said, wow, the tough part comes in. And that's when I realized that it wasn't just him that had a strong platform, had a platform, is that I too have this platform. And how am I going to use this wisely, and what made sense? What made sense for me, being who I am and what stage of my life I'm in, and as a parent. And so I started, thinking a little bit more about what I was passionate about. And I was definitely passionate about our children's development, but I was also passionate about their peers in their schools. You know, my kids attend Patterson Public Schools, and I just said to myself, what is it that I can encourage, you know, given my platform and my, you know, just sort of access to the community and to people. And I realized that there was an area of opportunity with our literacy rate. Our children here in the city of Patterson, as I started looking at the numbers, because I'm as a marketer and as a business school student, and just as a person, I just enjoy numbers. And my husband will tell you sometimes I challenge him on the data, and we have great conversations at home, especially before, especially anytime that he's about to make an announcement. I'm like, well, what's the data to support it? And then I'm always the devil's advocate. So I'm always looking at data. And one of the things I looked at was the fact that so many of our students were not reading at or above grade level. Only about a quarter of students were reading at or above grade level, which meant 3/4 of our students were not, were reading below what was defined as grade level by grade 3. Now, why am I citing grade 3? By grade 3, you unfortunately, if they're not reading at grade level, you sort of lose that level of confidence to keep their momentum going. Now, this isn't always the case, but we're talking about generalities here, and we're talking about it at a macro level.
Yeah, and so you're right, because sorry to cut you off, but you're absolutely right, because there are many researches which are goes with what you're talking about, because being a third grade level is an extremely important. If your child is not going to be reading at the level of third grade, the idea that he's going to be interested in reading is going to get more difficult.
Yeah. So at that point, I said, I would love to be able to spend my time encouraging parents to read with their children, establish a culture of literacy in their homes, because the schools can only do so much. And there have been, years after year programs to encourage students to read. And what we've come to realize, and I think everyone's always realized it, but how do you tap into the parents and encourage the parents to create that culture of literacy, whether it be creating these cozy corners with books for their children, to making sure that every night they're reading at least 15 minutes with their kids, right? Letting the kids, but what does that look like? Some parents like, okay, I know I'm supposed to encourage reading, but what does that look like? What's my role in all of this? Well, one, it's encouraging them to read. 2, creating the spaces for reading, and the time. 3, like, engaged with them, have them read to you, have them turn the pages, have them, if they still can't read, if they're really young, like they're preschoolers, have them make up a story from the pictures, or have them read from memory. Like, my 4-year-old loves to read certain books because she's at this point memorized them, read from memory. So I have a 1-pager that I've taken to a bunch of schools, whether it be, I've been to Hani Awadullah, to School 13, to School 2, you name it, School 25. Like, I've been throughout. Yes. I've done reading at Community Charter School Patterson. So I don't, I try to spend time in as many schools as possible, not just reading to the students, but also encouraging their parents, giving handouts to their parents to say, hey, here's some free books, and here's some tips on what to do. It's not just, oh, you need to read more. It's, hey, here's how we can make it fun.
And I'm glad that you brought that point, that, many parents think that, okay, you got to read, the child, take a book and read. But as a parent, sitting with them, reading with them, and you pinpointed it, making the child, flip the page and giving that opportunity and actually being present, that creates a relationship with the child. And, this is how you can get engaged. So having said that, I know that you are actually doing something with the Patterson Talk reading, and also I saw that you were sharing, read at home as people are quarantining. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Patterson Reads is actually run by the Patterson Education Fund. I am simply throwing my name, throwing our, family, we're a visible family here in the city of Paterson. So trying our best to be role models in a positive way, with and hashtagging Paterson Reads as much as we can on social media, because we know so many of the parents are spending a lot of time on social media. But what we're doing now during this time when everybody's in quarantine is we have Silk City Story Time, where my husband, myself, sometimes my children take part in reading a book so that other children can follow along, especially because I'm actually quite shocked every so often when I go into a school with my husband. I'm shocked at how many elementary school children know who he is. Like, I don't know if I remember who there was when I was a kid. But, they know him. And so, having that familiar face read to you on, TV or, through YouTube or through Channel 77 on Optimum or Cablevision, or through our, just our other public access channels. It's what we've kicked off as our way to sort of give back. Let's read some of our favorite books and let's try to get that engagement going, so that if parents are busy, they know, hey, you know what, I can either turn to this public access channel at certain times, or just go on to the City of Paterson YouTube page and play it. And at least that's a good nearly 30 minutes that my kid is engaged in something productive and reading it with a familiar face reading to them.
Yeah. So now I want to talk to you about, I know that you and your husband, you guys are very public about your being positive COVID family. And I know he became positive last month, and then you became positive. How was that experience? And share some routines. How did you do it? Because you have 3 kids, we call it, mashallah, 3 kids. How was that? And I know this new life of quarantining is tough.
Yeah, it is. I have to say, this is probably the most difficult time of our lives. And I say that because, speaking of which, my little one, who is supposed to be asleep, has decided to say hello. Say hello to everybody. Mommy's on TV, honey. That's Kayla, my middle child. Can I, oh, okay, honey.
Hi,
Daddy? You want to go to Daddy upstairs? Yeah. Okay. So it really has been the toughest time of our lives. So first, of course, we find out that my husband's uncle, John, tested positive for it at the age of 82. So we were already really concerned at that time. Then my husband, naturally, because the first responders ultimately reported to the mayor, he tested alongside the first responders and found out on, I think it was Tuesday, April 7th, that he was positive. At that point, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I'm on a conference call for work. I sort of have everything sort of under control, and he comes in and says, I tested positive. Of course, I get nervous, and so I rush to the doctor and get tested, to find out a few days later that I also tested positive. We called our pediatricians and made sure we tested our children. They sent us to PM Pediatrics for that, urgent care center, tested them. All 3 tested negative. We were shocked. We were like, okay, very odd, but we're going to take precautions. My mother and father both wanted to be involved. And I said, look, no, they're both older, and while they're relatively healthy, I didn't want to take a chance in having them help the kids. So they have not seen their grandparents in a very long time. And I think on both ends, it's pretty sad, because they love each other so much, and to not have them interact live in person has been extremely difficult for all of us. So once I tested positive, I realized I had to be very careful. So I tried to wear a mask around the house, but the reality was, I said, these kids have been exposed before I tested. But nonetheless, I wore the mask for some time. It was really difficult to maneuver with 3 little ones. Remember, I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So it's very difficult to maneuver with them like that. So fast forward about a month later, for me, 2 weeks later, I took the antibody test that was the prick on the finger, and it said I tested negative for antibodies. So I was very concerned. About another 2 weeks after that, I myself and all the kids tested.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me. And my middle child tested positive for antibodies. So naturally, I'm worried, and I'm just
Yes.
continuing, especially with all that's in the news with, I think they called it PIMS, pediatric immune. I forget exactly, what the acronym stands for. But the concern is that I'm monitoring her on a daily basis because, some of the post-COVID reaction from children has been concerning. So
Yeah.
right now, we're just constantly monitoring everyone, constantly taking temperature. We have our thermometer very handy. We also have, I forget what it's called, where you place your finger into the oximeter. I think it's to test your oxygen level. We
Oh.
make sure we test ourselves and our children. We're just constantly doing our own tests on a daily basis.
And a new routine in life.
Yeah, new routine. When we leave the house, we have our masks on. We are much more diligent about taking our vitamins, our multivitamins. We're looking at our diet a lot more stringently. We're trying to make sure that we have to be, thank you. Someone said oximeter. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that properly, but I can see the live comments there. So thank you for that. I think it's really important that I think one of the things we have to realize is that our body is a gift from God, right? It's a gift from Allah. It's a gift from God. It's a gift, and we have to take care of it.
Yes.
There have been so many people, I think about this time and how many people we've lost, how many people I've personally known, and it's been really tough to say, wow, they're no longer here. And some of them were quite young, very young, actually, but through whatever choices they've made in life, or maybe genetics or whatnot, they, had either diabetes or heart issues or whatnot, and they could not survive the virus. And so I've told myself I'm not letting my kids get to a point in which they just sort of eat whatever they want. I've been a lot more diligent. They want, let's say sometimes they just want a cookie or whatnot. I'm like, no, let's take a look at what we've had, throughout this day today. How much sugar have we consumed? Let's just be very careful, and letting them realize how important it is to monitor what you eat. You just eat because you feel like, oh, I want that. No, we need to exercise discipline on that. So I think that's the biggest change in our life is making sure not just myself and my husband, but our kids are focused on a healthy diet. And I think one of the things my husband likes to share a lot is I got us on a cleanse after Ramadan last year. The two of us did a cleanse, a full week plant-based diet, no carbs, no sugars, no meat. We just had plants. I mean, it was a smoothie for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and a soup for dinner. And I think it just got our bodies on the right track. And I'm thankful that we did that.
Mm-hmm.
He benefited from it a lot more because it's much more disciplined than I am. I think being that I spend a lot more time with the kids, I naturally have a harder time. But,
At times it's tough and hard, but at the same time that I really applaud that being a mom, especially because your kids are such close in age, there is very few time for you to rest, and especially quarantining is difficult for everybody right now. And I remember when Mayor went live on Facebook about his being positive, and I know that you were recording it, could hear it in your voice, although you didn't say a word, but I know you have been through emotional time period, and then having the loss of the uncle. And because it is a tough time period for many of us, my husband is on the front line, and many people, professor passed away, and so that is scary. That is scary. So being a mom and being positive, and I'm talking about mentally being positive, at times the scariness does come, that what if we're not going to recover from this. So as a mom, how did you, because your kids are really young, and our kids are we are mirror to them, they see in us our reactions, how did you give them that a sense of security at that time when you yourself were scared?
Yeah, that's very difficult. I think my children don't fully grasp exactly everything that's going on. Like, when you tell them someone has passed away, it doesn't fully hit them too much. So I think for them, it's a little easier because the concept of someone going to heaven was okay. It's to them, maybe it's just not so bad, right? Like, okay, well, they're one with God, or they're, we've had so many different conversations on what death means. And I don't think it fully hit them. And so I think we've been able to protect them from it because how young and how, just really how young they are. I think they've been excited about spending more time with me. So I think this time for them has been exciting because they spend a lot more time with me. I've naturally being in quarantine and my husband having to be out and about throughout the city and making sure we're getting everything that we need to get for our residents. I spend a lot of time with the kids from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to sleep, and even in the middle of the night, making sure everything is perfect. So I think in terms of how it's affected them, I haven't had to try to shelter them as much because they've enjoyed it. They've enjoyed going out into the backyard and just running around and playing with each other and like not stressing out so much. We do homeschooling, and we have a period of time, early in the morning. We get it done between 10, 11 o'clock. We usually get as much done as we can and then try to enjoy the rest of the day. Okay. For me, it's harder. I try to put the devices away. A lot of times I'm looking at my devices at night after I put them down to sleep. And that's where, I have the opportunity to think, to grieve, to read.
And whether it's reality. Yes. So I'm going to read some comments that I'm having here on the screen. It's, I think this is from Dr. Daniel Huck. It's one of the problem is the Patterson. There is high immigration population of many parents have limited education as well. So I think this was about when we were talking about reading, and that is very true. So
yeah. And, your immigration status shouldn't play a role in this. I know sometimes the confidence level in reading English is very difficult when English is your second language, or in many cases, for some, third, fourth language, right? I'm very impressed with the immigrants that we have. They are, we have some really, really smart immigrants that have come to this country. And they'll know maybe, Turkish and Arabic and Bangladeshi, or, they know a number of different languages. It's okay to read in your language, and it's okay to have your children read to you in English. It's a way for you to learn. That's usually my message to parents, is not to take their lack of confidence in the English language and make it a hurdle or an obstacle for your child. In fact, their child can help teach them by reading to them, and vice versa. They can develop this love and this joy for reading in their mother tongue. So it's okay for immigrant parents to try to find ways that make them a little bit more comfortable in creating a culture of literacy. I think we need to find ways to do that and explain that to them. That doesn't always have to just be in English. That it's okay to read a book in your native language to your child, and then vice versa, have them read to you in English.
Yeah, and I know that senses is extremely important because we are going through that, and quarantine, COVID-19 has created, different gaps throughout in many branches of life. So, and Senses has a book which is about different languages, and they do talk about reading in that one as well. There's another question that I see from the audience is women are the backbone in a family. And I say that from my own experience, having a strong mother and a wife. Oh, I guess that was a comment. So which is leading to my next question. I know behind every successful man, there's a woman. and which we all see you in helping the mayor?
I would say to the side, all right, as opposed to behind. And we've always, I think, I'm going to do a quick pause because I had people say share the link. So I'm actually sharing your link of us live here right now on my timeline. Okay, sorry. So done with that. Women definitely have made advances over the past few generations, and let's keep that momentum going. I think I see this as a partnership. Anything that affects the city is near and dear to my heart, and being someone that has the ear of the mayor a whole lot more than most people, I leverage that. So if a lot of what I do is I do a lot of reading, whether it be, publications like the New York Times or The Economist or you name it. I just love trying to wrap my hands around what's going on out there. I love to read my social media news feeds because it gives me a pulse of what people are thinking and reading about in Paterson. What are they saying? And, what are their concerns? And I call it social listening. So I do a lot of social listening, and then I sort of summarize it like in the morning. Sometimes, fortunately, I should not do this. I tell myself not to do this, but the first thing I do when I wake up early in the morning is I look at my phone and I go through and I get to see all the different posts and things people are concerned about. I read local press, Tap into Paterson. I read NorthJersey.com, and then I read national news, right? And opinions. So and I make sure I summarize. I try to summarize that for him, and he does the same for me too, because we read different things. So and analyze it in different ways.
You're doing a way better job. I don't mean to say that you're doing all the homework for him, which is such a good job for him.
Well, he does a lot of the reading too, but I make sure I'm like, wait, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you hear about XYZ? So I want to make sure he's on his toes. And sometimes I'm up at night and slicing and dicing data in ways he may not have seen before. So, when COVID was, when we were at the peak in, early to mid-April, really mid-April, I had sliced and diced the data in different ways to say, well, okay, how are we doing compared to Newark, Jersey City, Elizabeth? And then I started looking at much smaller cities, Union City, West New York. I started taking that data and plotting it into Excel and doing just like a regression analysis and saying, okay, how exactly are our numbers compared to the density if we look at ourselves relative to our density? And based on the density, we realize that because we are so dense, and we are more dense than Newark, we are more dense than Jersey City, because we have about 150,000 people within 8 square miles, much smaller in size, physical size than them. And yes, our population is smaller than them, but when you look at how dense we are on a per square mile, it's extremely dense. Some of the other areas that beat us, but are much smaller cities, are West New York and Union City. So comparing that and saying, well, how do we compare to them, and what are they doing, and how do we just sort of flatten the curve given our density, and understanding just sort of the full scope and what other areas are doing. Mm-hmm. So I do my own analysis separate from, I know he gets tons of data from the folks in his office, but there's something about me just being able to grab that data from the dashboard, the state dashboard, but also what the local counties and municipalities are reporting, and just kind of doing my own analysis. And sometimes he just glances at it very quickly, and I'm like, I spent hours on this. Sometimes it's just an interesting way to look at things in a different way. And I think you have to, as a leader in the decisions that he's making, he needs to be able to see the full scope and be able to look at things in different ways.
Yeah, and I actually always have appreciated that the mayor always says that whenever somebody asks a question that when are we opening, when is our opening date, he would always say that I am going to go by the data, not by the date, by the data. And I really appreciate that. And I know that you have a strong role to play in that, because you guys are always talking about it, and that is the right way to deal with it, especially being Patterson such a dense population. And I'm actually myself personally very proud to say that today was our first day, within Patterson, the sites which are open for testing. And I was at the Kennedy. We did from morning 9 to 5 o'clock, and we had 183 people throughout the whole day. Within 4 sites, we tested like 350 people. And so it's a matter of pride for Patterson, and it's free that we are offering. So how many people can say that it's on a very high level what the mayor is doing. I have a question here from one of the audience that how painful was it, or is it for the first lady once mayor is and was sick, to hide and control emotions in front of the local community and police and people to maintain the same level of confidence booster?
Yeah, so I think the question sounds like, how do you kind of keep pushing forward, right? What I've come to realize is you have to control what you can control. And you could take time to be sad about it, be concerned about it. But I think the most important thing is saying, okay, what can we do about it? And how do you remain positive? That's really difficult, especially because so much was happening around us that was so negative. And, I think what you have to be is you have to be positive, and it's difficult, but you have to remind yourself that fear is not going to help alleviate the situation. So why remain in fear the entire time when you say to yourself, okay, now I'm concerned about this, but what can I control? And I can control diet. So what is it that we're eating? What is it how are we feeding ourselves? Because I truly believe there's so much that you can do to boost your immune system, whether it be what you're actually eating, the supplements that you're taking, making sure that you're getting rest. All of that's important. And I think the other thing was showing people that we can overcome this. I was also pretty confident that because we didn't have those underlying conditions that were of concern, that we should be able to make it, right? And at that point, it was like, inshallah, we will make this. We can get through this. And so it was frightening. It was frightening. But we also realized that a lot of what was happening to people around us was because of the underlying conditions. And so I think that gave us a little bit more confidence to know that for our sake, we were okay. We were concerned for people around us, which is why we said, no. Like, I mean, at that point we were already no visitors, but we just told people, like, just stay far as possible from us. People wanted to drop things off, which was very kind. Whether it be paper towels, snacks, food, that was great. We appreciate it. But we reminded everybody to just stay as far away from us as possible, because what was concerning to us was transmitting it to somebody who was vulnerable.
Correct. I know. You're absolutely right. In the whole environment, because this pandemic has impacted us throughout the world, and wherever we go every day, people are dying. It's not that survival, it's people at the same time, it's impacting the whole world. So it's extremely difficult to be positive for that survival mode. Another question I have here is, do you reckon sometimes First Lady's involvement with mayors for personal aspects might cause issues of maintaining administrative privacy, or you think it's always motivating without risk? That's a very...
I'm sorry, I don't think I fully understand the question.
Okay.
Sometimes involvement from personal aspect might cause
if the question can be on the screen, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I see the question. So you're talking about our own privacy. We're pretty much an open book in many ways. There's certain things, especially regarding our children, that we try our best to remain, pretty private about. But for the most part, we there's not much that, we don't have much to hide, right? Like I always tell my husband, like, there's, people can try to learn more about us as much as they want. There's really nothing, like no skeletons in the closet.
Right.
Like
And
that.
you wasn't very open even about whenever, and which I really appreciate, whenever there's a new restaurant opened up in South Patterson, you
Or
know,
anywhere, yes, in
or
Patterson.
anywhere in Patterson, you're very extremely supportive for your own city, which makes me proud of being a Pattersonian as well.
Yeah, and I think we want to show people that they can spend their money in Patterson. We know that a lot of people spend their money in chain restaurants outside the city. They go to Paramus, they go to Wayne, they go to all these other municipalities, and support large businesses. But we have so many amazing mom and pop restaurants, and I think that's going to be a big push for us. After the lockdown, right? After the quarantine is now that people are coming out and are out and about and are able to actually sit in restaurants. I think we want to make sure we encourage people to keep their money in Patterson as much as possible. That's how we're going to be able to recover as a city. And there's just so many ways to spend money in our city, right? There's no need to spend double at a chain restaurant outside of Patterson when you could spend so much less for great home cooked, healthy foods here in the city.
Yeah. So I know that your husband has started a new initiative, Neighborhood Express, and I think it was the idea was given by you.
I don't think I can take credit for that one. I think it's great. I pass on ideas to him all the time, but this one I will not be taking credit for. I think it's a wonderful program. I've constantly been saying we need to do more, especially for our most vulnerable communities that don't want to come out for various reasons, especially our elderly. So I'm actually always happy when some great ideas come forward. So I think the Neighborhood Express is a great idea. The partnership with the Citizens Campaign. I just think overall we need to come together. And I think one of the ways people can heal and feel better about themselves during a time like this is knowing that they can give back. And I can't tell you how many people I get, not just in Patterson, I'm talking about people all over this area. People who are, from all parts of northern Jersey have reached out, whether they reached out to my husband or to me directly to say, hey, how can I help? And I'll say, okay, there's this organization or that organization. Like I'm trying to sort of funnel them to either give funds, donate food. There's so much that's needed here in Patterson. And I think people realize that here in their backyard, no matter, if they live in Bergen County or they realize that the need is extremely high here in the city of Patterson. So we just need to find avenues for people to help. And I think the Neighborhood Express, among other programs, are just a wonderful way for people to give back. It helps people. It actually helps the giver as much as it is for the people who are receiving.
Okay. We have another question here. You want to take it, Farhana?
How do you foresee Mr. Mayor's political career? Where do you see him after 5 years' time? Patterson's our home. I've lived here for about 10 years now. He's been a lifelong Pattersonian. My husband was born at St. Joseph's Hospital. He's always lived in Patterson, even though I guess some people have a hard time believing that. So he's always lived either between... What's that?
I said I can witness that. He's a Pattersonian.
Yeah, born and raised. He loves the city. So, we've invested in the city, and we have our home here that it's funny, every time I want to make a home update, I'm always like, we've saved up enough. Can we update this? Can we update? My husband's like, and I'm like, hey, we're investing in Patterson. Like, if we invest in our home, that's our investment in Patterson. So, that's sort of like my excuse to be like, we can splurge a little bit here and there to make upgrades or, fix something. But we see ourselves in Patterson for the long haul. So, where he's going, I don't know. We take it one step at a time. He's only been mayor for 2 years now. So that's the focal point. Ideally, another term, because 4 years is just not enough to complete the agenda that he has and the strategy and the plan that he has for the city. I think we're on the right track. He's taking a lot of what was done in the 6th ward. I mean, you drive around the 6th ward, there's development everywhere. And it's what we need. We need to be able to take some of the eyesores in the city, boarded up homes, and say, what do we do with them? How do we make them productive? And how do we make sure they're rateable so that we have a stronger tax base, so that we're not in the crunch that we are all the time, whether it be the municipal budget or the school district budget. So, the economic turnaround is going to take a lot more time. And so he's here, whether or not you like it, for the next 5 years.
Okay. Another question I'm actually getting on my cell phone is how hard it is to follow Ramadan, not being married to the same person of the religion. I think we.
Okay. Yeah, so like I said, we respect each other and embrace each other's differences. And to be honest, my husband looks forward to Ramadan more than I do. He loves iftar. So we usually, this year is a little bit different, for obvious reasons with COVID-19. But every year for Ramadan, I mean, our calendars are packed. We're like, okay, we're doing iftar here, we're going iftar there. We're, whether it be one of the masjids in the city, which we have many. It could be in someone's lovely home, whether it be there, it could be a small apartment and we're sitting on the floor with friends and having food, and we love that. It can be in one of the restaurants in Patterson. There's always a bunch of buffets going on. We're constantly on the go, and our kids are with us. So observing Ramadan together has never been an issue. Waking up for sahur, he would help me wake up sometimes. Like if I, don't wake up in time, and I get, I take my sahur, because if I don't have sahur before this, before dawn, I'm miserable sometimes during the day. It depends. When.
So it's an amazing partnership.
It's a good partnership, and it works, and it'll only work if you want it to work.
Okay. So we have one more question is, do you want to see him as the governor or congressman or as the president candidate?
Wow, lots of questions on politics. Look, like I said, we take this one step at a time. Right now, we're here in Patterson, and the objective is to focus on Patterson and have Patterson grow and be a talking point, a case study for other cities to say, look how Patterson has become that comeback city, right? So I think there's many ways that we can do that. And we've been blessed to have the help of amazing Pattersonians, amazing people from around the Patterson area. But even Michael Bloomberg, he has been such a champion of some of the work that we've been doing here in the city of Patterson, and such a great form of support for my husband. And I think that right now the focus is, how do we get Patterson on the right track? Because all these other potential, good evening, Councilwoman Lalisa Mims. Sorry, I didn't get to say that to everyone, but naturally I see her name.
That's okay.
I get excited. But I think, you take it one step at a time. So in terms of political aspirations, that's not important right now. I think the most important thing is that Patterson gets what it needs. My husband's only halfway through his first term. I believe he will have an amazing second term as well. But that's just my opinion.
Yes, and many more to come. The next question is, what are the 3 benefits you enjoy being the first lady than others? And what are the 3 special sacrifices that you have been making that normal women might not need to do?
So as the wife of the mayor, I don't try to use that as clout, if you will, unless necessary, right? And
I have not seen it once.
For the greater good. I'm not that kind of person to be like, do you know who I am? No, it's just not me. We go to restaurants, we try to pay. Whenever they try to give us discounts, whatever, we make it up by giving them a bigger tip. Like I I don't think it's right to go into public service and in a public position and feel that you need to take advantage of things. I just don't do that. Naturally, having this title, sometimes I find, some folks just pay attention to what I have to say, whether it be as an active PTO member and feeling very concerned about something. I find that I have a little bit more of a platform. So what I do is I take the concerns of the other parents and I try to sort of bubble that up, and I have the opportunity to have the conversations with higher level administrators that maybe other parents either don't have the confidence to do or are nervous to do themselves or whatnot. Whatever it is, I try my best to say, let's bubble up everybody's concerns. And then I'm lucky to have the platform. And so I use, my role as the mayor's wife as a platform in that way, and to be able to advocate for parents, to be able to advocate for other constituents, for women and children.
It's so funny that all these questions are actually related to politics, and now it's coming to you. Do you have any plan to get involved actively in politics?
I have no plans for that right now. I actually, love public service. I mean, people call it politics all the time. I call it public service, right? I love it, and I get to live vicariously through my husband, which has been great. And we have 3 young children. So right now my focus, Sonia, thank you. And I'm lucky to have you as a friend and a partner. And Sophia is lucky to have your daughter as her BFF. Anyway, so I keep responding to people's comments here.
And that's,
they're a little distracting. They come up and you can't help yourself but respond. But I call, back to the point of what I was saying, public service is extremely important. And I don't see myself in politics, not in elected office anytime soon. Who knows if things will change, but right now, I love my career in marketing. I love just being an active mom, and I realize that any decision I make affects my children. And so that's an important decision for me to make, is making sure that whatever I do is right for my 3 kids.
So I actually personally appreciate, Farhana, you because we know each other from a long time, and I have seen you in many ways as a parent with your own kids. And I remember when you guys, I attended the first PTO meeting. I remember that very well, and how the attention changes and how mindful you are bringing other people's, point of view on the platform. I want to know if there's any last messages that you want to give, to our audience or anything. And I personally wanted to talk about, the reading task that you had, the Paterson Read. It was an app. I think today was the last day to submit something.
The contest, yes. So yeah, we pushed out a contest on social media. It was sort of a test to just see how many parents would be interested. Like I said, my angle when it comes to Paterson Reads is, how can we get more parents involved? As a parent of 3 young Paterson children who, again, as I mentioned, are in the Paterson public school system, I try my best to say, okay, what can we do to drive more parental engagement, right? Because I'm not going to tell a teacher what to do with regards to their curriculum. They know much more than me. They've studied it. But what I can do in my platform is try to encourage. Like I said, I've gone to many schools talking to other parents about how they can engage with their children. And some of the things I do, I'm not the perfect parent. I have my own issues at home with my children and trying to get them to do what I want them to do. But one thing I have to say is that my children have developed a love for reading. So I'm very excited about that. And it's all about how you develop that culture at home. So the contest that you're referring to is, all we're asking parents to do is post a picture or a video, be creative, of you and or your kid reading, ideally together, with the hashtag Paterson Reads. Based on your creativity and based on the engagement, so the number of likes, number of shares you get, you could win an iPad. So this is something my husband and I, it's not funded from the city. Don't worry, your tax money isn't being used for this iPad. What we said is, let's give this a try. And if something like this is successful, we can always find, just different ways to engage with folks, especially because we knew so many people needed devices, right? Whether it be for, for some of the learning that they're doing, the homeschooling that they're doing. So we said this would help us in both ways. As I have my little one here at 10 p.m. coming downstairs, and now she's under the table. I need to get her back to bed.
Parents.
What's that?
Like, is it related to the kids which are only younger?
It could be anyone. It could be older kids. How do you engage together? Maybe two, parent and child are reading the same book and they're engaging over, a really interesting biography or any, it doesn't have to be, a preschooler, a kindergartner. It doesn't have to be a child. It can be any engagement. Just because, 20 years from now, I'm still going to ask my kids, what are they reading? So, and hopefully we can have like a little mini, book club within our family in the future. So actually, my husband never likes to throw away a single book, which is why we have way too many books in the house. So I have a feeling maybe my kids will enjoy reading some of those books, 15 plus years from now. But nonetheless, I think it's really important that we drive some of that engagement on social media. I know a lot of parents spend a lot of time on social media. And so I think it's key that we show that we're reading and that we're encouraging each others to create a culture of reading at home.
Okay. Thank you so much, Farhana, for joining us tonight. I really want to thank you especially for taking your time. And I know that you have younger kids. And I know the last question was that can we ask Mayor to come, but we arrange it in such way that when you will be interviewing with us, you'll be watching the kids. So yeah, thank you again for giving your
Mr. Dad tonight. So, let's let him be dad.
Thank you. And I want to thank Channel 52. You guys are all watching Channel 52. And we had Andre Saya, our mayor's wife, the First Lady Farhana Saya with us, which has given beautiful messages. And please follow her link for the Read Clip program. And thanks again. Have a good night.
Thanks, Amber. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.